and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 2008 AN. Today's date is October 30th, 2019, and the title of the episode is The Elite Central Bank Just Got Blindsided. Patriots Move Forward with the Economic Plan. Now, before I get started, I wanted to talk about a loved one passing away. Death in the family can be hard, but unfortunately, we all have to deal with it sooner or later. In fact, the average funeral home is between $8,000 and $9,000. Having no insurance when you die can leave your loved ones with a huge bill to deal with, and no one wants that. Visit ratefamily.com and get a free quote. You can select the best plan to fit your needs and budget. Visit ratefamily.com or call 855-919-RATE. You'll be glad you did. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, there is no doubt that the Patriots now control the economic narrative, not just here in the United States, but out in the UK. And I know the mainstream media is out there saying that Boris Johnson is a bumbling fool. He has no idea what he's doing. But guess what? He played the central bank, the EU, and he got what he wanted. But the EU, the central bank, what are they doing? They're pushing fear. Why? Because we're approaching that period of time when there's going to be a decision that is made to stay or leave. And what they're saying is that the UK economy, once they leave the EU, it's going to be a disaster. It's going to cost the UK about $90 billion. And this is coming from the National Institute of Economic and Social Research. And this is one of the UK's leading economic think tanks. The think tank has suggested by the end of 2020, Johnson's agreement, if accepted, would axe the size of the country's economy up to 4%, or about $1,400 per capita a year. Now, why do you think they're doing this? Why do you think they're pushing the fear-mongering out to the public? Because they know it's going to happen. Boris Johnson right now, he accepted the Brexit extension that was offered to him for January 31st. But the extension is meaningless. The January 31st extension is completely moot if there is an election in December. And it seems that there's going to be an election in December. Now, MPs voted in favor of a December 12th date by a margin of 438 to 20, a majority of about 418. So the Liberal Democrats wanted a December 9th election. So did Labor. Not that Labor really wanted an election, they just went along with it, pretending that they wanted this election. The significance of a December 12th is that the college students who are likely registered to vote near districts close to their schools may not vote at all since they'll be on recess. That was a win for Johnson. The amendment to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote was struck down when Johnson threatened not to offer December elections at all, was also a major win for Johnson. Those who suggested Johnson caved in by agreeing to an extension to January 31st, missed what he was doing here. Johnson got exactly what he wanted, an early election, when he is way ahead in the polls. Johnson even phoned Macron telling him to okay an extension. Johnson was opposed to an extension, at least that's what he said. And he was, if there was no election attached to it. Johnson colluded with Macron, who demanded a way forward. The way forward meant either elections or passage of the withdrawal agreement. The WA had the Liberal Democrats scared to death. Johnson is so far ahead in the polls that he would rather gamble on elections before the withdrawal agreement is settled. And what about the no deal? Well, the no deal's back in play. Johnson wants a deal, but if the elections are such that he needs cooperation from the DUP to achieve Brexit, then expect a no deal. Everyone seemed to underestimate what Johnson was doing here. They thought they had this. The mainstream media was out there. The politicians were out there saying that Johnson has no clue what he's doing, and they thought that he was just agreeing with all of this for the extension, but he played them. All that remains is an election to prove all of this. And right now, Johnson is way, way ahead in the polls. And it seems he's going to get his way. The Patriots, they're fully in control of the situation. Now, here in the United States, we see the U.S. economy is moving along right now. Now, it slowed in the third quarter, but growth continued thanks to strong consumer spending, which offset the drag of some of these business investments that aren't doing that well. And the gross domestic product, which is a broad measure of goods and services produced across the economy, rose at a 1.9% annual rate in the third quarter. Economists had expected growth to slow by even more, to an annualized rate of about 1.6. Inflation-adjusted consumer spending rose to 2.9, above the forecast for 2.6%. So the economy is still moving along. It's not doing as well as Trump would like it to do. He'd rather have a higher GDP number. But this plays into what just happened here. First, the economists thought the number was going to be much, much lower, and it turned out the number was higher. Secondly, this allowed the Fed to say, hey, let's cut the interest rates again. And that's exactly what they did. The Federal Reserve cut its interest rate target by a 0.25 percentage point for the third time this year. 8 of the 10 Fed officials voted in favor of lowering the federal funds target rate to a range between 1.50% and 1.75%, with 2 Reserve Bank presidents preferring to hold rates steady. So once again, Trump, with him continually tweeting out, telling the mainstream media reporters that he wants the Fed to cut rates. We need to be competitive across the world. Other countries, other areas, other central banks are in the negative territory. How are we going to compete if we're not even close to that? And Trump has just won. He now has the Fed doing exactly what he wants. And when we look at the market, what do we see? The market has taken off. Gold has gone up. Like I said before, Trump is bringing the Fed to where he wants. There's going to be a certain point when we hit that magical rate and we hit magical stimulus where we're going to see the economy take off. All these financial pundits and everyone out there saying that if we lower rates and we start stimulus, the economy's not going to do well. Have it backwards. And there's a reason why they are telling people that if Trump does this, the economy's going to fail. We're going to enter a recession. Because they know that if he continues with this economic policy and forces the Fed to cut rates and the Fed follows, the economy is going to take off. We're not going to see a recession in 2020. And we already see this happening. Now, does that mean the market's not going to come down a little bit tomorrow or the next day? Of course, it bobs up and down every single day. The point of all of this is that when Trump reaches that magical number, this is when the economy will take off, and he will hit that number. Will it be this year? Most likely not. I do believe the rate cuts are going to continue in 2020 because this is exactly when he wants this to happen. I believe he got the Fed to do what he wanted to do this year. There might be another rate cut, but I really think they're going to wait until next year. And I think this is when we're going to see the fireworks. And Trump needed to do this. This is not the central bank protecting themselves. The central bank was on course to bring the system down. The central bank realized that Trump controlled the economic narrative, and there was no way out for them. They lost their opportunity to smash the economy and remove Trump from office. Now they just have to go along with him. And it's going to be their disaster, because when everything is all said and done and Trump turns this all around and says, listen, The economy's doing great, and now the Fed is doing something completely different. Why? Why does the Fed want to ruin the economy? And we're going to see this happen. This has all been planned. Because eventually what's going to happen after the 2020 elections, this is when Trump and the Patriots are going to make their move against the central bank establishment. Making a move against the central bank establishment is going to be a battle. They do not want to give up control. They will go to war to keep control. They've done it in the past. They'll do it in the future. And they will not budge unless they are forced out. And the Patriots are ready to force them out. And they will force them out. Because everything that Trump and the Patriots are doing would be absolutely worthless if we do not remove the central bank system. Even if we reset and the debt is forgiven and we don't go back to a sound money system, or if we do go back to a sound money system and the private Western Central Bank is still in power, we'll end up exactly where we are today. The world will end up exactly where we are today. Actually, it might even be worse. The only way moving forward is to remove the source of the problem, remove the source of corruption. Remember, the central bank is like a credit card. Think about your own household. Think about people who just continually use credit to survive, to buy things that they really don't need. That's what government does with the central bank, because there's no checks and balances. There's no debt limit. Yes, they pretend there's a ceiling, but they keep raising it. It's almost like a household that's making $50,000 a year, and they get one credit card, and there's a debt ceiling of $10,000. That's all they can charge on it. They hit the $10,000, and they go and they get another credit card for $10,000. So they just increase the debt ceiling. When they hit that debt ceiling, they get another credit card for $10,000. And they continue this over time. The same thing is happening with government, with the central bank. There's no checks and balances. There's nothing to say, you can't do this. If we're on a sound, or when we're on a sound money system, you just can't borrow. You just can't say, hey, have the Fed create more currency. We'll just give them treasury bonds, and we'll have more funds. And we can do whatever we want with it. If it goes missing, it goes missing. This is why Trump and the Patriots need to get rid of the central bank system, the private Western Central Bank system. And we need to be placed back on a sound money system to keep everything in check. And I do believe the founding fathers designed this way to make sure that there were checks and balances, to make sure that the government would not get out of control, where they would just not spend the currency they don't even have. And by having a credit card in government, that breeds corruption, because funds go missing. They're not accounted for. And this has happened since we came off the gold standard in 71. I'm sure it happened before that, when we were on the gold standard, because the private Western Central Bank system, they were in control of the system, but it really went crazy after 71. And then when we hit 2008, it was a free-for-all. I mean, think about it. Go back in time. Go back to 2001, when the Pentagon was missing $2 trillion. Think about all the trillions and trillions of dollars that are completely missing. Nobody knows where it went. No one's being held accountable for it. I believe it's like 21 or 25 trillion completely missing. And this is why we need to go back to sound money. This will remove all of that's been happening since 71. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.